Welcome to the Automotive Tide. I'm Andrew Charbonnet, your host. Tonight, as promised, we are going to begin going over your questions and concerns regarding the CDK cyber attack. I was fortunate enough to be able to interview two very close friends, but also well-informed and great IT security specialists who both created and developed the back-end infrastructure one was for a biopharmaceutical company and the other one was for a terminal illness center. Okay, so let's start with number one. Do you have an opinion on who is behind the hacking, like USA or foreign government? His response was, it is too early to rule in or rule out state-sponsored espionage attacks. However, the ransomware as a service, RAAS, black suit, rebranded from Conti, is known as an Eastern European cyber gang that has been identified by reporters as the ones taking credit for the ransomware and breach and in talks with CDK Global. The fact that they have also attacked U.S. critical infrastructure, SCADA systems, might indicate that there is some state-sponsored element to it, but nothing has officially pointed towards state-backed attacks as a part of Black Suit's RAAS history. Number two, do you think the hack is part of something larger? It did happen to hospitals recently. Almost seems like they are probing different sectors of the economy. Black Suit is not known for any politically based hacks, but does have a history of hacking for profit across multiple industries, for example, healthcare, finance, U.S. critical infrastructure. And tomorrow night, my second guest is going to discuss a little bit more on the Bridgestone case, which happened 3 years ago. And that will give you more insight to a self-hosted, self-infrastructure based company where they had to completely rebuild everything from the ground up because these hackers were able to get into their actual digital copies and break the encryption code. So they couldn't even get into their own digital backup copies, which my second guest, Reef, is going to explain tomorrow night. Number three, do you think CDK had cyber insurance? Do you have insight on payment to CDK, or if CDK has to make their customers whole, or if the auto dealers are just completely out of luck? Generally, public companies. Excuse me, let me take a little glass of water. The answer to that is likely CDK Global has cybersecurity insurance. Their corporate history indicates that as recently as April of 2022, that CDK Global was public and thus likely had a policy that also carried over or was renewed when they were taken private. So they were once public, now they're private, by Brookfield, which is a private equity firm. What primarily drives the high likelihood that CDK Global has cyber insurance policy stems from the fact that they not only offer a software as a service product, but also actually provide IT services along the line of a managed service provider with installing VoIP, hosting infrastructure, and housing customer data on their hardware, software, and in their hosted ecosystems. Breaking this down, it would be one thing if CDK was just a training company, just offering their software for you to use and to implement, and it was sold as just software for clients to implement on their own. But because they are taking on the data, the infrastructure hosting, and a lot of business critical functionality for their clients, it would be highly unusual and very slapdash if CDK did not have cyber insurance. However, just because you have cyber insurance doesn't mean that you can use the policy or should use the policy. For example, in July 2021, the healthcare company I was a part of had recently purchased a clinic, but had not yet fully been integrated into our robust IT security ecosystem. This clinic's still running its existing security tool sets. Third-party managed service provider partner software fell victim to the Kaseya man in the middle attack, where monitoring and remote control tool sets intended to help manage workstations and servers were backdoors for a hacker group to attempt to connect and infect clients. Luckily, we contained the attack surface, isolated and neutralized the command and control vector of the attacker, and were able to, over a holiday weekend, completely restore the clinic. but the question did loom over me and the rest of our team: do we need to enact our cyber insurance policy? And if so, what benefit would it give us? After a lot of digging around and brainstorming what our policy would do for us, some interesting insights were found. Most cyber insurance policies don't pay out ransoms. Since the guidelines by the CISA and the FBI both have publicly suggested that the best course of action when you're contacted affected by ransomware is to not pay out any demands, no matter how promising. One of the reasons that is not mentioned in here that he did talk a little bit about, that I left out because it was so long, is that one of the reasons is because if you pay the ransom, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be bulletproof, because they're still going to have access to your system. So the idea of paying a ransom to somebody who already has bots inside of your infrastructure is not really a good idea, because you're paying a ransom to somebody who theoretically still controls your system. Okay, so number two, our cyber insurance policy was costly to activate. Essentially, to activate their insurance portion of their umbrella policy was to pay a $1 million for their deductible for the insurance policy to distribute $1 million. And the minimum to activate the policy was $1 million. So as you could see, it wouldn't make much sense. Most companies don't end up with damages to actual equipment or people. It's a disruption to revenue and damage to their reputation. Cyber insurance typically doesn't cover disruptions to revenue or reputations. So any attempt to pay a ransom or cover damage have to be very steep, and typically the barrier to actually use a cyber insurance policy are very high and nuanced. Number three, the only real benefit for our company would have hypothetically been relying on the cyber insurance policy for actual provable property damage. Examples: servers, network equipment, workstations. Very rare that these assets can't be repurposed. In addition, another benefit of our cyber insurance policy being activated would be along the lines of setting up a public call center, identity theft, recovery programs to help out with patients, individuals affected who can enroll in credit protection products, all funded by the cyber insurance policy. So as I discussed in one of the videos before, this is what likely, if it is found that consumers' public or information has been made public, then yes, CDK is going to be responsible for offering them some kind of prevention software like LifeLock to monitor their credit, to protect them for 1 to 2 years. Okay, so stay tuned for the rest of the questions to be answered. Okay, remember, this is the Automotive Tide, where we keep you up to date with the ebb and flow of the automotive industry.